special agent Eric Branstrom. So he changes agents, which I'm going to ask you about.
Here we
should
go.
He be changing location? Should he be in Ottawa? There's lots there. And you brought up, Ian Mendez's article about splitting up Zub and Chabot. We'll work this all in. Let's just talk about the D. But first, Eric Brandstrom's mid-season switch. What does that tell you the mindset is right now for that defenseman?
Well, okay, let's address the agent thing really quickly first and get that one out of the way. When you change agents in a situation like this, it's pretty common. You're just looking for a fresh face to represent you, to go back and forth with the organization, because the last agent probably starting to fall on deaf ears a little in Ottawa. He's constantly calling and trying to get a point across that Brandy should be up or whatever. And you look for a change of scenery. That's how you do it as a player. You get a new agent to represent you, and that in hopes that, maybe there's a different tactic involved. But see, I look at that and it only means so much. Why would he change an agent now? Is it because he's preparing for the summer, or is he just angry that he thinks and believes he belongs in the NHL right now? Those are the questions, right? But you look at his numbers, Wally, because this happens to a lot of players. He's not exclusive in this department where, he's a fringe player that in his mind, he believes he should be in the NHL, starts off in the A. I've went through that for two years in a row. After playing and finishing 20 games at the NHL level, following season in Columbus, I start off in the American League. I thought I should be in the team, but I wasn't. And I didn't play well enough, I guess, in training camp to earn that spot. And so I've spent a lot of time in the American League that following year. So my point is, look at his numbers right now. I mean, I know it's only been 4 games. He's got no goals, no assists. He's like -5. He's not exactly knocking down the door to get called up, right? And it's not like, and that says a lot with the current thin lineup on defense at the NHL level. So I don't know how you want to follow up those numbers with an argument proving that he belongs up. I know the fan base is eager to have him up here. Wally, I'm at a point now, I'm thinking just call him up and be done with it. It'll shut everybody up. Give him 5 games, throw him in the fire, see how he plays. If he plays well, he sticks. If not, you send him back down. But I know it's more complicated than that. But I'm sick of these Eric Branstrom debates. I really am. I'm sick of talking about it. Just call him up and get it over with, and let's see how we can do.
Okay, fair enough. So I have a couple of points to that. One is the other night it's 5 games, 0 points. In game 4, I think it is, he got cross-checked basically high. The guy ended up with a pet. He hit the ice and lost 3. Either the stick caught him or he hit the ice, lost 3 teeth.
I saw that.
He did play last night, so I give him some credit for coming back into the line. He took 8 stitches. The Eric Branstrom debate isn't a debate if the 6 guys or 7 guys in Ottawa were all playing well. And that's the problem, right? And Eric Branstrom has been oversold to the Ottawa fan base. They have been sold that he is the next coming of Erik Karlsson, and that he is
that's all. That's a little dramatic.
No, I covered him arriving in this trade, and I went to Belleville to watch him.
Sorry, you meant initially when he came.
Yes. This is the guy. We got Eric Branstrom, who's going to be just basically Erik Karlsson. He's the same size. He's going to fill out. He's going to be, it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Well, he's not. And so now the expectation level on Eric Branstrom is so high that it's tough for him to even just try to work his way in without, if he doesn't have a 3-point night, people are like, well, where's Eric Branstrom? And when he's not playing, people think, well, he should be in the lineup because he's going to be Erik Karlsson. So somehow they've got to figure out what he is. But we've missed a couple of points here. I'm not of the assumption. I don't think he necessarily should be in the Ottawa Senator lineup. I don't think he's ready for the NHL game. And I'm not sure if he's ever going to be that guy ready for the NHL game. Switching agents tells me, I think he's looking for a change of scenery that doesn't have an Ottawa Senator logo on it.
And you could be right. Here's a good question for you. Because I know there's always an argument that he belongs up here. If the team's on the road, so you've got, you've got first change or whatever, and Thomas Chabot can't play. He can't go out there. He's tired. He's too tired to go back out on the ice for a big important draw. It's a 1-0 game against Edmonton or something. Do you trust Eric Branstrom in the D zone?
No.
In a 1-0 game with 10 minutes left, would you put him out there?
No. And I see the statistical numbers of analytics that say
I've seen them
generate stuff.
I know. I think those are a little disingenuous because they were at the end of last year when the team was rolling pretty well.
Yeah.
Now I know I know they're also individual stats. I'm all for this. And by the way, I want to make this clear. I'm all for bringing them up. I'm at a point, as I mentioned earlier, I just get this over with, this experiment. Give him a short, give him 5 games to prove himself or something. I don't know. Wally, who do you take out? Who do you take out?
Well, wait a sec. You said bring him up for 5 games. You want to just give up 5 games, if you will. This is a team trying to win hockey games. And now we're saying, let's experiment with the lineup. Well, you can't do it to the guys who are in the lineup though.
Right. But if they're struggling back there, there's an opening for it, right? So if you're struggling with your bottom 2 pairs, because I don't believe splitting up, I wanted to address this too. Yeah. I don't believe splitting up Chabot and Zub is the right move. I just don't. I think that you have to think long-term here more than the short term. And first of all, if you split them up, that's not even a guarantee that that little experiment's going to work any better. Right. You're going to make minutes much more difficult again for your prized possession on the back end and Thomas Chabot. And furthermore, if you're thinking long-term, you want those two to develop good chemistry together. Now, I know they've had almost instant chemistry, but getting those reps in on a nightly basis is huge, especially for, year 2, 3, when you're actually starting to run for it. So I don't like that idea where you just got to figure that out. Like Holden, he can defend. He's pretty good back there. He's reliable. So who's a good partner for Nick Holden on that second pairing? That's one of the main questions you have to ask. We all know that Methot and Brown don't work. And I didn't like, people were all over Brown for a couple of big turnovers last game. I agree. He wasn't that great against New York, made a couple of mistakes as well. But at the same time, it's like, who do you pair on that second pairing? And then who do you have on the back end? And then where does Brannstrom fit into the equation?
All right.
I think you just call him up, Wally. You just bring him
up. But before we make Josh Brown out to be the worst hockey player on the face of the earth,
his numbers aren't that bad.
Have you not had a bad hockey game where you've had a couple of turnovers that have led to goals?
And that's what I didn't like about the reaction. Again, Twitter, the problem now is that I feel like we base so many decisions off of Twitter reactions, right? Yeah. Like where these are I'm on there all the time. I'm fitting into this group of pigeons on Twitter. I'm a pigeon too, but I'm saying, I don't know that necessarily represents everybody, right? So people like to complain. A lot of people pick up their phones in the morning and they go, what can I be angry about today? And that's what they do, right? So, and sometimes I'm one of them too. So, I think that we have to understand that I've had games like that where I've thrown a pizza up the middle, and now it hasn't happened often, but it has happened. And people were calling for my head. I think that people are looking for an instant fix back there. And quite frankly, you're not going to get it. Like, we're talking about short-term right now with some of these fill-ins that they brought in. They've got Del Zotto. Some of these guys aren't going to be in the long-term plans. You have to understand that it's not always going to be pretty this year, and once Sanderson rolls in, once JBD comes in, we were talking about some studs, Lassie Thompson, like it's going to come together nicely. So you can go for a short-term fix and go after maybe a serviceable bottom pairing player. What's the point? Is it going to be a far cry from what we already have? Probably not. You know what I mean? So I think patience is the most important word here. It's like, it's not always going to be pretty. The team's going to get shelled some nights. You just have to accept it for this year. And in hopes that your other players that are coming up will be able to fill those spots and positions over the next couple seasons.
All right. Speaking of one of those, Jacob Bernard Docker, his first AHL, his first pro goal last night, he actually had a pair. So good for him.
Yeah,
congrats to him.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always been under the assumption, and I've watched this for years, it's tough to come and stick 18, 19, 20-year-old defenseman right into the lineup. And I'm thinking of Jake Sanderson.
Absolutely.
People always thought he's got to get some reps at the AHL level or whatnot. Are we banking way too much on Jake Sanderson all of a sudden to show up and be Zub or Chabot in the lineup here? All of a sudden it's great, and he's plus 25 by the 3 games into the season.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because, and I'm guilty of it, right? Like where I'm like, well, yeah, let's just wait. We've got Sanderson coming in. We have, everything will just be fine. It's like, no, it's still going to take him probably a year or two at least to figure out. Like Shane Pinto is a good example to use, right? Where very mature for his age, but he still gets hurt. Is that because he's a young player that made a mistake, or was that just a freak accident? That's debatable. But that's an example of a player that physically and mentally needs to mature a little more to understand the ins and outs of the games. Like, you're playing against some really big, strong dudes now, and you're going to get thrown around if you put yourself in a compromising situation. So you obviously don't want these things to happen to any of the young players that are coming up, but they do happen. Would getting a little bit of seasoning down in the American League help that? Maybe a little bit. But I'm always in the belief that if you have a lights out training camp and you're out playing half the other veterans, you belong on the team. It's as simple as that. That's why you have tryouts.
Yes.
So do I think that these answers are coming in next season? Not necessarily. I still think if you have an opportunity, Wally, to go after a top 4 D-man and it's there, I think you have to take it. I honestly, I do. Who's going to be leading that? Obviously, Chabot's leading the back end, but you still need some more stabilizing guys. Holden is a guy for sure. But if you have an opportunity to go after a top 4 D-man and it's out there and the price is right, I think you go for it. They have the cap space. They've got the assets. At some point, you have to make some uncomfortable transactions. Like, you can't just hoard all your picks. You can't just hoard all your prospects, and think that it's just going to develop perfectly over time, right? So those are all very difficult decisions that Pierre's going to have to make. But you're right. I love that you bring that up. Sanderson isn't necessarily the answer. Like, he's not going to come in and change the culture or the back end of this team. It's going to take a couple years.
Yeah, and I have no idea if Jake Sanderson's going to be Cale Makar or Quinn Hughes.
He might be.
He may very well be. But the typical progression isn't to be all of a sudden this dominant player that steps in from college and starts
especially on
throwing
defense.
Up points. That's all I wanted to say. Also, do you have you ever had a 4-minute shift?
Oh, you know what's funny? Where were we? I was playing with Columbus, and I don't know what it was. We were having a pretty decent year, but we were playing in Philly, and was it Gord Murphy? I'm trying to remember my D coach, but anyway, in any case, the game was ending, and I was kind of pissed off. I don't know why I was mad, but we weren't doing very well. And we weren't having a great game. And I think they had sat me earlier on. So there's like 4 minutes left in the game. And I'm like, F it. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to stay out there. This is my way of protesting. I'm just going to stay on the ice. And I'm not an offensive D-man by any means, right? So it's hard to stay on the ice for more than 2 minutes if you weigh more than 230 pounds, which I probably did at the time. Wally, I'm not kidding when I say this. I think my shift was like 3.5 minutes long. It was almost like farcical. Like the bench was laughing at me and we were getting blown out of the water. And I stayed out there for the rest of the game. Coaching staff, nobody said a word to me. And I just went on my merry business. And I think if anything, the coaches appreciated it because no one said a word. And the next game, I was back to playing 20 plus minutes a night. So sometimes I can understand. In this case with Chabot, there was a legitimate reason, and the coaches actually wanted him out there for that long. But man, to play for 3 minutes and manage the puck the way he does and skate the way he does and do it several times is incredible. And that goes back to our original conversation, Wally, like that where you need depth because you can't rely on a player to play that much. I'm sorry, but that's going to lead to an injury at some point. I'm calling it now. If that kid keeps playing 30 plus, I mean, obviously he's not playing 30, but he's playing more than 27 minutes a night. At some point, that can cause an injury and you're going to get a little lazy. You're going to forget, you're going to be out of position. You're going to put yourself in an awkward spot and he's going to get hit and it won't be nice.
Are you forcing Thomas Chabot to do too much if you're playing him 28 minutes a night where he feels he actually has to be the difference maker?
Well, the argument to my point and to what you're saying is that he's not alone. Like there are other defensemen in the NHL that are playing more than 26 minutes a night. And I mean, I had them somewhere here in my little booklet, but there's a handful of them. And, guys like Seth Jones, Letang, Makar.
Drew Doughty, I think is up there.
Doughty was up there. Hedman. Darnell Nurse. Yeah. Another leader in the league. He's actually, I think, top 3. So once you look at those names, Thomas Chabot is in that category. So it kind of buries the whole discussion about it because I don't know that those teams are having or those fan bases are having those discussions as well. We like to fixate on that, I think, because the decor is so thin here. But, DJ was adamant last season that he can handle the minutes. And if Thomas Chabot wants to play those minutes, he's a big boy now, potential captain on this team. If he had an issue with playing more than 26 minutes on average a night, he has to speak up and say that and verbalize it to his coaching staff. Otherwise, he's fair game. So that kind of buries that whole argument.
Okay, I feel like we're going to be here for the next half hour. DJ Smith has said each and every year we don't want Thomas Chabot playing 24, 25 minutes. And each and every year, Thomas Chabot's played 26 minutes or more.
But it's funny you say that because each and every year, DJ Smith also defends the fact that he's playing that much.
Yes,
like
I know.
He defended it last year. So I don't know which way we're going.
So he just says it, and then he totally ignores what he says.
Yeah, well, he's gonna defend it, Wally, right? Like he's gonna defend that decision.
For sure.
And again, like I said, if other guys around the league are doing it, and all the other top D men are doing it, and they tend to thrive playing big minutes, I understand. Now on a back-to-back, that's when you got to protect them a little more. But the problem here, as we all know, is the depth on D, and that's going to be an issue if they don't address it, especially when the games become more meaningful. I don't know that that's an issue though this season. I'll leave it at that.